whether or not single ladies should have to undergo a drug test before they get married. Now, that's not just from us here at House of Justice, your station that gives light to life and takes justice to the law, but that is a directive that the NDLEA is considering. And so, it's important to have that discussion. But then again, we want to know how bad the drug problem is in Nigeria. We want to know what the issues are. We want to know which gender has more preponderance on drug use. Do I have with me Mr. Shadrach Usman Haruna there? Good afternoon, sir. Hello, Mr. Haruna, do you hear me?
Hello, good afternoon, Gloria.
I think that you may need to unmute so that you can hear us. If you can hear me, we can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me?
So if you can hit on the button, and so you get to hear us. And so I'm looking forward to hearing you. I can see you, Mr. Shadrach Haruna. But
have you on mute now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Good to have you. So that is Mr. Shadrach Usman Haruna there, the lawyer and the head of secretariat of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency of Nigeria. As a matter of fact, he is the second in command. He has with him a rich resume as a lawyer and the head of secretariat of the agency, as well as a track record of international work, because he was in the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in Austria, Vienna, before he joined the NDLEA. So thank you for joining us on House of Justice, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah. So we're discussing drug abuse, gender, and national security. How bad is the drug problem in Nigeria?
Well, just so before I go to that, just let me quite briefly. Yes, I was with the UN in Vienna. That was 2008, and I left for the Commonwealth. I was in the Commonwealth Secretariat in London as the legal advisor before I came in to take a position as a secretary in the LEA. Oh, wow. So this is the current position I have. Yeah. So yes, the drug problem in Nigeria is huge. You may have seen it, you may have seen it in the paper, and you may have seen all the reports and the research work that has been given out over time by so many of our partners, including NDLA as well. We have a prevalence of drug use, which is going towards a pandemic proportion, or it's endemic in the whole country. You know, for instance, we have 14.4%, which is almost 3 times the global average of drug use in Nigeria. About 14.3 million Nigerians are into drug use. And of this number, in every 4, we have a female person in drug. So it has gone so high that a country like Nigeria, which is a bit conservative, will have such a high number of female in drug use. Is something that should bother all of us, and we're worried. And I think the country is worried as well, because we have heard from the highest echelon of security architecture of this country, the prevalence of drug use and how it's fueling insurgencies as well as terrorism. So we in the agency, we're doing all we can to see how we can stem the tide, which is currently sweeping across the whole country. We do know as a fact that federal government is doing a lot. As an agency responsible for the enforcement, we're working towards this eradication as well of drug use. But of course, we need a whole society approach to achieve this particular game, which we are up to. We cannot do it alone. The government cannot do it alone. No matter the amount of fund committed to this drug issue, we need a society to work with the agency to see how we can do it from the grassroots level to the industry level, as well as every sector of the economy. So we are working around the clock to ensure that we carry our partners, we carry along with our stakeholders, as well as those people at the grassroots level, how we can permit every level and fight all these issues together.
Oh, wow. That's quite an issue. And I guess, like you said, it will have to take a village to stem the tide of drug abuse in Nigeria. So Tunde Mark from Abuja asks the question: how many containers does the NDLEA intercept on a daily basis, and what happens to the shippers?
Well, I cannot give you offhand the number of containers we see all the time. In fact, recently we have just had a very big haul from our port in Lagos, and we do a lot of them all the time, but it's not, the figure is something I cannot give to you immediately. But I do know as a fact that we're not working alone when it comes to issues of containers coming from abroad. We work with customs and so many other agencies at the port. And sometimes our information will be that, yes, customs or police or the one that has left the port would have been intercepted by police and transferred to NDLA. So we have quite a huge number of drugs coming in, particularly tramadol and some other drugs, not necessarily cocaine. Cocaine do come in, but not in high quantity as tramadol and so many others. So we're battling with the issue of tramadol because that is what is actually fueling the Boko Haram insurgency in the Northeast. And we're battling with it because it's also being sold on the street. Of course, you know very well there's a certain milligram that is licit, but in most cases, the milligrams we have on the streets are those ones that are meant for horses and some other animals. So, and this is the one being consumed by drivers of articulated vehicles, being consumed by people who are riding motorcycles, being consumed by drivers on the highway all the time. So we are developing a policy to see how to bring all those ones, to rein them in and see how we can actually control the process. Even women in homes are also consuming tramadol. And there's so many other drugs apart from these ones coming from abroad that are being concocted within the country and by youth, putting some innocuous substances together to become psychoactive, and they use it a lot. So it's something that we're also researching, and we're on the heels to see what drugs constitute psychoactive substance, what innocent and innocuous substances they have combined to form these psychoactive substances. And of course, you do know that methamphetamine have been on a high increase in the country lately. And between 2018 and 2017 and 2019, we have tracked down about 18 laboratories, clandestine laboratories, and destroyed them. We're always getting information, and we're really moving ahead to see how we can collaborate with partners to ensure that we destroy any of them that come up again. So this is what we have been doing. But like I said, we need a whole society approach to fighting these drugs.
Oh, wow. Recently, an item made it to the news and it reads: single ladies to undergo drug tests before marriage. And that is from the NDLEA. Is the NDLEA considering such an institutional policy?
Well, it's certainly not the accurate report of what happened, if I may say. You know, there's never a time the chairman of NDLA said single ladies should be subjected to drug tests before marriage. In fact, what he did said was that we want to use moral persuasion, which is part of our advocacy strategy, with all the religious leaders, faith-based organizations, to ensure that those ones they have influence over should be made to be weaned out of drugs. And part of what they could put in, the soft policy they could put in probably, is to ensure that whoever is coming before them to ask for marriage should also be asked for drug tests. This is not a policy of the government. And no government, not this particular government, will ever go to such an intrusive type of policy. We will do that. We know very well, and at the time when he made that statement, we were very conscious of it. He said couples and with moral persuasions to religious leaders, just like you can go before your priest to confess. You're not obliged. No government can make you to confess to anything, but you willingly go to your priest to confess because you believe in him. He can help you intercede with God. So if you want to go before God for a marriage and you know that your priest is the one to join you, please, we want that priest to also morally persuade you that, look, don't go into drug because there's no such thing as no religion, there's no restriction as part of our strategy and policy advocacy, then we're happy to work with it. It is not something we want to develop as a government policy. It is against the Constitution that we should be that inclusive, and we will not go that way. Government has no business with moral issues relating to individuals. It's our private rights. And that is why heinous things, sins which religion condemn, like prostitution, is not made an offense in the country because government has no business to intrude into moral issues. But of course, we are trying to develop and working with government that whoever wants to come into government, if you want to be recruited to work with a government agency or an agency of government that is arm bearing, you should go through drug tests since you are coming to work with the government agency. So that's the policy, not single ladies. We never at any point, and the chairman never at any point mentioned single ladies. He did mention couples who are coming before religious leaders should be morally persuaded to go before drug tests so that we can also use that avenue as a way to reach out to believers to stop taking drugs. That's what we're saying. So it's never a policy.
Interestingly, Mr. Haruna, if you click on, if you put in the search engine single ladies to undergo drug test before marriage on the internet, you're going to see a lot of news feeds. And so, because this is House of Justice where we give light to life and we take justice to law, we give every partner and every section of the society an opportunity to have their say. And right now, we are going to swing over to Lagos, where Ms. Ihioma Obibi will be standing by to join us and give her own opinion on the issues. Ms. Obibi is a leading member of the Nigerian Feminist Forum and the Executive Director, Alliances for Africa. And so we will be hearing from the Feminist Forum their thoughts around this news item before we get back to it and their feelings about it. Of course, at some point, we're going to open up to the public to also join in this conversation because it is important. This is a conversation around more than one quarter of the Nigerian population, and it should be concerning to all of us. And so we try to connect with Miss Ihioma Obibi in Lagos, where she will join us to in the conversation. But in the meantime, we take a break, and when we return, it will still be a House of Justice. Don't go away.
Yes, yes, y'all, and we don't stop. Come on.
Keep it locked. This is HOJ Radio.
Yes, yes, y'all, and we don't stop. Come on.
Keep it locked. This is HOJ Radio.
All right. Welcome back. It's the House of Justice, the program that keeps us alive and justice law. And yes, this is the flagship program of HOJ Radio. And discussing about single ladies to, I'm sorry about that, drug abuse, gender, and national security. And we have the Secretary of the National Drug Law, Mr. Shadrach Usman Haruna, as well as the State Secretary of the International Federation of Women Lawyers. And we are trying to connect with Ms. Ijeoma Obibi in Lagos, the Executive Director of Alliances for Africa and a leading member of the Nigerian Feminist Forum. We hope to connect with her as soon as we can. But back here in the studio, I have have the FIDA representative. Single ladies to undergo drug test before marriage. That's what the headline says. What are your thoughts? Well, I see that as discriminatory against the women folks
I can hear you.
in the sense that the rights of freedom against discrimination is contained in the 1999 as amended, and everyone has right not to be discriminated against. Now, I tried going through some articles, Article 15 and Section 42(1) prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex and ensure that men and women have equal rights, access to courts in matters concerning contracts, torts, and all civil matters. Now, I see that explicit recognition of women's equal rights is contained in Article 17(1), 2A, which recognizes equality of rights, obligation, and opportunities before the law. So if NDLEA is coming out to tell us that some women or all the single ladies, but he just refuted the report. If every single lady is meant to go through a test before marriage, that means she is being discriminated against. Now, what I want us to look at is what is the root cause of this drug in our society, most especially among the younger ones. If we tackle that from the roots, we'll be able to look at it and now know where to go to. The root cause of most of these is, a lot of women go off in order to get themselves acquainted with the realities. Some go ahead in taking marijuana, taking stimulants in the form of cocaine, taking static drugs that makes them molly, and they go on heroin. But the root cause of these women going into these drugs has not really been looked into. I think let's start from checking the root cause. We'll be able to now get in nibbing it from the youths. And I'm sure when the youths are really curtailed, it goes a long way in now showing to the public. That's what I see in that place. Thank you. All right, we will get back to Mr. Haruna in a bit while we try to connect with Ms. Ubibi. We are having a few hitches here, but hopefully we should get around it. But then from the perspective of the International Federation of Women Lawyers, do you think that there is a preponderance of drug use with females more than you possibly could have with males? No, please. Do you have any statistics to support that? Well, the statistics, I think he made mention of 14.4. The statistics of women that goes on these drugs are very, very low compared to the male folks. The women would just be about 3-4%. So if we want to really tackle this illicit drug taking, we should go to the root cause, and the men should also not be left out. All right, Mr. Haruna, are you with us still?
I think I got what she said. Let me just put certain things in perspective. One, we're not saying that more women are into drugs than men, but there's an increasing trend of women going into drugs. A conservative society like ours, we have for every for every 4 individuals in drugs, we have a woman. And that is alarming. So one
Is
one
it
is to
more
four.
alarming? Is it more alarming than the 3 meals?
That the what?
Is it more alarming than the 3 meals who are involved in every four?
No, no, no. It's the increasing trend, which is concerning. Not the fact that we have 1 to 4, but before it wasn't like that. It was 0 point something percent, but it's increasing every day. And the recent research, this is an evidence-based research. It's not just something concocted from anywhere. Evidence-based research conducted by responsible and well-resourced individuals and international agencies. We have for every 4 individuals in Nigeria, we have a female. And the issue there is it is not because it's a woman, but we have seen continuously that it is rising. And this is worrying. And that is why it is a concern to us that if women are going into drugs, we know very well that even where you see a man who is really into drugs, is the woman at home that will try to say, oh, no, they'll caution the woman and the man, and bring the man back. But now where you have a man, which is, of course, they usually take it for macho and other things, but now women are going into drugs. What is happening to our society? What is happening to the family unit? And that is a concern we have. So we're not saying there are more women than men, but then the rising trend is a concern to the country and to those who mean well for this country. So, and then secondly, the issue of discrimination is not even, it's a non-starter because we're not talking of discrimination here. We're talking of drug use. And what we are saying is, we're not saying we should treat female in a worse situation than men. No, we're not saying that women should be focused in fighting drugs. No, we're saying we should carry along everyone. Whoever is involved in drugs, however it comes, we should try to address it. So the issue here is when we say moral persuasions to those who are coming before the priest to be wedded, then of course we're not saying women, single ladies alone. We're talking to both to the couples. And if you listen or if you look at the report and the speech given by the chairman in Borno State during the exhibit burning exercise, he said couples. He never mentioned single ladies. So it was taken out of context. And that is what journalists should actually try to investigate before coming up with such information. Because it could be concerning to so many female folk that, oh, why is this agency being discriminatory? And we know very well, we know the issues of human rights. And we are, in everything we do, we mainstream human rights situation into it. So it is not in our blood, it is not in our DNA to see that women should be treated differently from men. No, we don't do that.
Interestingly, Mr. Haruna, it may interest you to know that when you feed in this information, you don't see a rebuttal from the NDLEA on this news item. But before we get back to you, let me try to connect with Ms. Ihioma Obibi from Lagos on the same issue so that we can get the thoughts of the Nigerian Feminist Forum and the civil society. So let's see what we have. For joining us from Lagos, Ms. Ihioma Obibi, Executive Director, Alliances for Africa, human rights activist, and leading member of the Nigeria Feminist Forum. Recently, the Nigeria Drug Law Enforcement Agency has proposed that single ladies may undergo drug tests before marriage, and this is as recent as the 22nd of August 2020. What are your thoughts about it?
I think it's rather unfortunate that once again Nigerian women are being objectified by a statutory institution.
Yes.
We are in the middle of a pandemic
Yes.
that has increased the sexual and gender-based violence women face in the home, women and girls especially.
Yes.
To now add the possibility that for those women that are employed in, shall we say, government institutions, will now be subject to drug testing because they are single women is abhorrent. And I think this is also the problem and the reason why we have young women rushing into marriage, because we have made it as uncomfortable as possible for young women to just be young women.
Yeah.
And so if you are not married,
Yes.
it makes it very difficult for you to just live a life.
Yeah.
Landlords don't want to rent to you. If
Yeah.
you buy a car, you won't get married. There are all sorts of myths associated with being single.
Yeah.
And this is not to dismiss the fact that we have a drug problem.
Yeah.
Nigeria does have a drug problem. We have certain sectors of the nation where codeine consumption as a drug far outstrips its consumption as a drug for those that are sick or with cough.
Oh.
We have a problem.
Yeah.
And I think we should address the problem as neutrally as possible. Drug taking is not specific to any gender. It cuts across genders, male and female, cuts across classes, cuts across education, and to a certain degree cuts across age. Because there are some mature individuals who are what they call working drug takers. They go to work, they're functional. You don't know they have a habit, but they have a cocaine, heroin, or ganja habit. The fact that they are functional doesn't mean that the drug habit they have doesn't exist.
Now, for some rights analysts, part of the concern is that this directive by the NDLEA diminishes female to the point of criminality. It's almost as if to say every single female is a drug addict until proven otherwise. Is that something that the Nigerian Feminist Forum is looking to analyze?
I think when the statement first came out, that was 2 days ago, on the 22nd, I don't think anybody took it seriously. I think people were so shocked by what he was saying that I don't think people realized that he was actually serious. And so for us, just the mere thought that a government agency could actually consider such an opinion, bearing in mind that yesterday we have the spotlight, we have the UN-EU Spotlight Initiative to end violence against women and girls. We have a governance forum that have declared sexual and gender-based violence an issue. We have the Ministry of Justice that has set up the Interministerial Committee on Sexual and Gender-Based Violence. I think this is a complete failure of this agency to recognize what the government is doing. And I think the NSF doesn't really have to do much. I think it is for the Ministry of Women's Affairs and the Ministry of Justice to call him to order.
So like you alluded earlier, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Please go on.
No, go ahead.
Like you alluded earlier, this is still a thought in the oven for the NDLEA, but the fact that it could even be imagined is problematic enough. It doesn't even have to get to a law, but of course, the fact that there's a pronouncement from the NDLEA speaks to the fact that they are looking to make it a law and a directive. How do women organizations and human rights groups work at ensuring that there are no directives or policies that criminalize being female?
I think such a policy would be counterproductive to Nigeria's obligations under all its regional treaties. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights, the Maputo Protocol. And remember, under the ECOWAS court in recent pronouncements, Nigeria has lost a lot of cases when it relates to discrimination against women. So I think the first thing I would suggest is that a formal letter is written to the agency for actually clarity. Can you explain what you mean? Did you mean what you publicly announced? Because sometimes we hear these pronouncements from these agencies and we're not sure whether the media have got it right, it was reported accurately, do they know what they're saying? So we need clarity. And then if we are lucky enough to get a response from him, then, and the response is not what we expect, then I think we need to do some serious advocacy, not just with the agency, but with the Ministry of Women's Affairs to find out what are they doing about it. Because whatever it is, the national gender policy is very clear. And we do have one. We have lots of very good policies. And we can't have the NDLEA doing its own thing when we have a national gender policy that protects Nigerian women.
Thankfully, we have also contacted the NDLEA to be able to speak for itself and to analyze the issues. The other concern, though, would be comparing the drug use, the drug abuse between the genders in terms of male and female. Is it correct to say, as it being alluded by the NDLEA, that there are more females who indulge in drug use than males?
That's not the issue, please. That's not the question we have said.
Because Nigeria is not good with disaggregated data. So unless there is data to corroborate what he says, he's just plucking figures from the air and from the sky. So he may be speaking from a particular section of society, for example, in the Northeast or in the Northwest. But we can't make that assumption about, let's say, the Southwest, the South-South, the Southeast, or the Northwest. We don't know, the Middle Belt. So there's drug taking happening, yes.
Thoughts of the NDLEA. Is that correct to say, sir? Hello, do you hear me, sir?
I can't hear you. You switched me off completely.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. And so but you said earlier on that the news item around single ladies about single ladies to undergo drug tests before marriage is not a true reflection of what the NDLEA said. Is that correct?
No, that's correct. And I told you that it is not a policy envisaged by NDLA. A government agency cannot force a religious group to force women to undergo drug tests. We cannot even come in as a policy, neither can we envisage a law to that effect. I've told you and I've repeatedly said is that what the chairman said is part of our advocacy is moral persuasions. And if we can morally persuade religious leaders to consider such an issue for those ones they have influence over, then of course it's something that will help our advocacy, not necessarily single ladies. We said couples who are coming. It's just like you going before your priest to go and confess your sins. You don't have, government cannot legislate for you to do that. So the same way we cannot legislate to ensure that all women or all couples coming before a priest to be wedded should undergo drug tests. It can never be policy. And let me quickly address what Ihoma has said. I think Ihoma said it correctly, that look, we're not sure whether the newspaper or the media report is correct. And that is very true. The media report is not right. It's not the precise position of what the chairman said. The media report.
So Mr. Haruna, I think just to move things forward, you
Yes.
are going to get a letter that would be requesting that you clarify on this news item. You're going to get a letter, certainly. Would you be
Mind them,
willing to
yes.
respond on the record on these issues, just so that we can clear the air on this matter for all the single ladies in Nigeria?
Oh, sure. We want to we'll respond to such a letter because we don't want to be maligned with a good policy which we want to put in place because like I said, we cannot compel anybody by law or by policy so intrusive to the privacy of an individual. We cannot do that. We know we have that restriction by law and by the Constitution. So we will not go to that length of doing it. This government will not do that. And I know a responsible government as this government will not go to that, will not go that far. So it is not part of what we advocate for that we should discrimination. And drug, like Ihoma had said, is something that should be carried out on the same level in both sexes. We don't look at women or men as different from each other when we're talking drugs. So I think you should be able to correct this impression because the questions you have been putting to Ihoma is like, oh, well, this is what it is. NDLA has gone to say single ladies. NDLA has want to put up a policy or legislation to that effect. That is not the intention of NDLA. And I have repeatedly said that it is a moral persuasion on religious leaders, not something that government can enforce or not something government wants to put in place.
So, but is there a rebuttal? That's really the question in order to tidy it up. Has the NDLEA issued a rebuttal or asked the newsrooms that have reported it in this manner to withdraw the news item?
Yeah, but no, certainly I think they're working on that. The media section is working on that because I think lately they have been very busy destroying some of these cannabis all over the country. But certainly they will respond to that and they'll ask for a rebuttal and ask the media agency to withdraw that statement from the public and then come out clean with it. We never, and the agency will never go that far to do that. We work with the Human Rights Commission. We mainstream human rights issues to all our actions, and we do things in accordance with what the constitutions had established this agency to do, and not to go that far as intruding into one's private life and as trying to compel them to do what is supposed to be a private life. We can do that. And this government certainly will not do that.
Well, the Nigerian public looks forward to receiving that rebuttal because I think that it is concerning for a lot of people in Nigeria. But I'm just going to read for you some of the questions that have been put forward both by males and females because there's a whole lot of whirlwind responses to the issues. And the first one I will redirect to Madam Maria, who right here in the studio with me. So Dr. Jali Gwalem asks the question, does this have any correlation with the spate of husband killings some time back? I'm just going to rephrase that on his behalf, Julie, to ask that, do you possibly think that because of the issues around drugs? The drug contributed to some of those stories we had about some women who killed their husbands?
Well, the drug effects.
Is the question to me?
No, it's for me. The drug effects does not really have anything whatsoever to do with the spate of killings for a period of time, talking about last year, last 2 years, and at present. Nothing. Drug has nothing to do with it. But, most of these women are being pushed to the wall. And as they try to take steps, maybe to remedy the situation, they see themselves going to the extreme. It's not the good thing. It's not the best to kill anyone for anything. But drug certainly is really out of it. They were pushed to the wall. But I'm not saying what they did is right. It's been done. But, they needed a situation whereby they will be able to help themselves. But they now did it in the wrong way. So drug in any way has nothing whatsoever to do with the spate of killing in our country. That's within the past 2 years. Drug has nothing to do with it.
Rebecca Sako John asks this question, and this is for you, Mr. Haruna. How is the NDLEA treating factors for getting into drug use?
Come again, fixing factors for drug users?
Treating factors. I think that should be about the elimination of factors that push people into drug use. Is that something your agency is working on?
The push and pull factors to
Yeah.
drug use.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yes, it's something. You see, part of what we try to do is actually to see how to reduce drug demand, drug supply, illicit drugs. I mean, supply of illicit drugs. So it's part of what we try to do, because if you don't have it available, you may not go for it. And secondly, it's something that has to do with sociological issues, which is beyond law enforcement duties. You know, like our colleague in the studio have just mentioned, that crime of passion is not something that could be fueled by drug. And of course, any crime of passion could be fueled by anything. It could be anything. We don't have any research to point to it, whether it is actually fueled by drugs or is fueled by issues of other than just drugs. Of course, we don't have any empirical evidence to that effect. So it is correct that yes, it could be anything. So we try as much as possible to ensure that we block supplies. And that's why we destroy cannabis farms. We destroy any of those drugs that have been arrested and seized from traffickers. We destroy those ones that are being manufactured, including clandestine laboratories. That is part of what we do. And of course, issues relating to those ladies, I mean, those people who are into drugs, particularly like you mentioned before, you said ladies could go into drug because they have been pushed into certain level. Yes, those factors are factors that we try to address as well by working with social department to ensure that some of them who are yet to be both genders, this case, should be counseled and treated as well as being rehabilitated. We do a lot of rehabilitations, and we have so many people in our rehabilitation centers. So it's not just a question of ladies alone. And crime of passion is not just with ladies alone either. It is both sides. It could be both sides. And it could be by any process, could be fueled by anything. So we try to cut supplies. And that is part of our strategy, trying to reduce drug use.
Abubakar Danladi Aliyu from Abuja asks the question, do you intend, that's your agency, does your agency carry out drug tests for political office holders?
Well, it's not something we have developed. Of course, it's part of our mandate to develop approaches to seeing how to reduce drug demand. And then, of course, for people who are in public offices, those who are in position of authorities, how to reduce and how to stop them. Because, of course, some of them are influencers as well. And they're mentors to so many people. So we are yet to go to that level, but what we are putting in place currently is to see how to work with the government agencies, particularly the arm-bearing agencies, to ensure that they're all tested for drugs. And if you listen to news recently, you would have heard that immigration had actually adopted that approach for every serving officer to undergo drug test. And that is because so many of them who become melees on the road. They carry arms and they're supposed to be guiding us. But somebody who is not an agent of himself, because he's on drugs, may use those arms against those same people he's protecting. So for the law enforcement agencies, we're trying to do that. We're developing the policy in piecemeal. And for those who are coming to federal service, we may extend subsequently to civil service. If you're coming to federal service, we all want to see that you are not dependent. But that does not mean you will not get a job. You still have a job, but then we have a responsibility to see how to treat you, how to bring you out and win you out of drug use so that you become productive as you're coming into the government service. So these are some of the policies we're working currently to see to we put in place to ensure that we have a drug-free society.
Well, if you are still with us, the program is House of Justice on HOJ Radio TV, the station that gives light to life and takes justice to law. And you can join us via phone call on the number 070462315 The number again is 07046231510, and we have been discussing on the topic drug abuse, gender, and national security. And I've had in the studio with me and out of the studio joining us Mr. Shedrack Usman Haruna, a lawyer and the head of the Secretariat of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. You have also listened to Ms. Ihioma Obibi, a leading member of the Nigeria Feminist Forum and the executive director of Alliances for Africa. And right here in the studio with me is the state secretary of the International Federation of Women Lawyers, Barrister Julie Ariahu. So the number again is 07046231510. Of course, you can go ahead and leave your comments at HOJ Radio TV on Facebook. You can also like us on Twitter at HOJ Radio TV, one word. And so you can keep up this discussion long after we're gone, because I think that Mr. Haruna is going to get a letter and he has accepted to respond to that letter once it reaches his table. But we are discussing the issue of drugs in Nigeria, the abuse, and how it impinges on gender and national security. I'll take one comment. Jude May Gamu says there should be compulsory tests on politicians. There should be compulsory tests on politicians, and Mr. Haruna has spoken a bit to those issues. Stanley Shinkut says that the news item around single ladies on the go drug test before marriage is sexist and misogynistic. But the secretary has clarified on that, and we're going to see how it goes. George McCary asked the question, is there a statistics to that claim of 1 to 3 female male drug users? Mr. Haruna.
Yes, of course there is. There's a 2018 report of UNODC survey, which came up clearly that.
Okay, we just take this quick call and revert back to you. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Abubakar Aliyu. I'm calling from Abuja.
You're welcome, and thank you for joining us, Abubakar.
Yes, I have listened to your guests in the studio, the NDLE chairman and the Mrs. Bibi, right? Is it Obibi or Bibi now?
Yes, Miss Obibi. Yeah.
Obibi. The Mrs. Obibi and the guests in the studio have spoken well. Women do drugs because some women now do drugs because they see it as a means of escaping from their problems, their challenges. So they do drugs. But then what I think government should do, though the NDLE chairman has said the press misinterpreted what was said, but what I think government should do here is find out why people are doing drugs, not women alone, but why people do drugs. They do a study on why people do drugs. Based on the results of their findings, then they take steps to stop people from doing drugs. And secondly, I have also seen policemen, security agents on our roads smoking weed. What is the NDLE doing about that? They do it openly, they don't hide. You see them with some of these boys that do it by the roadside. They light up the smoke and they find their way. And these guys carry arms. So what is the NDLE doing about that? See that a security agent stop this weed thing or drug thing.
Okay, thank you very much, Abubakar Danladi Aliyu from Abuja. Thank you for that call. I'm sure Mr. Haruna will respond to you. We take more calls, 07046231510. And you can leave your comments on our Facebook page at HOJ Radio TV on Facebook, or on Twitter at HOJ Radio TV, one word. Back to you, Mr. Haruna, please. What is the NDLEA doing about drug use by security agents, some security agents?
Thank you very much. I want to thank Abubakar Danladi Aliyu very well because it's really what he had said resonate with the policy we're trying to work out. We are currently working with all the agencies, like I've mentioned before, starting from the arm-bearing agencies, including police, to ensure that they undergo drug tests. In fact, immigration has shown a very good example by saying that they want to all go through drug tests, regardless of whether they're arm-bearing on the road or not. And that is the policy which we wanted to be escalated to all arm-bearing agencies first. And like I mentioned before, it's on incremental basis. We want to start from arm-bearing and then move on to civil servants and then see how we can also move to teachers. So it's an incremental thing, and we're working on that policy, and it is something we want to do to see how to reduce drug use in the country. And also, we're also working on the other side of it, drug supply, to cut drug supply as well. So in every issue, we're developing a policy towards that. And I think what Abubakar had just said is quite concerning to everyone, including NDLEA as well. And we're working on that. Thank you.
Abogun Harrison from Lagos sends this. He says, is it a test to find if the craze of the single lady matches the craze of the one she wants to marry? But Mr. Haruna has made some clarifications, and he has also said that their agency will debunk that news item. Again, the number to call is 07046231510. We take this last call as we try to wrap up on this segment. 07046231510. And the conversation could continue even after the lines are tossed on at HOJ Radio/TV Facebook, and then at HOJ Radio TV on Twitter. Ms. Sis Ariahu, you've listened to all of the conversations around drug abuse and national security. As a wrap-up statement, what is the International Federation of Women Lawyers committing to do to ensure that we de-escalate drug use in the female gender?
Well, the International Federation of Women Lawyers is already into sensitization on women at the grassroots level, women in offices, to really integrate to the barest minimum. Because if we start from the scratch, that's the women at the grassroots level, we'll be able to spread around everyone to get to know that drugs is not something that any woman should engage in. And once these women are carried along, their children also will be affected. So International Federation of Women Lawyers are really going all out to see that drug is discontinued. So it, in fact, is discontinued to the last in all our environment. Thank you.
Mr. Haruna, your passing thoughts, please.
I want to thank the Secretary Fida who had just spoken, that he did said so very good thing because we want to collaborate. And like I mentioned before, our approach is whole society approach. And the whole society approach means everyone, including you in the media. We want you to join hands with NDLA to see how to fight this drug use in the country. It's not just for those who are using it now, but it's escalating and it's permeating every facet of this country. So if we don't fight it now, we don't know what will happen to our children and our grandchildren who are coming after us. Thank you. So we need a whole society approach.
And on that note, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Shedrack Usman Haruna, the Secretary of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, for joining us on this segment of House of Justice. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you for having me here. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I want to be with you again.
You're going to get our letter.
Sure, definitely we'll respond to that later.
All right, thank you very much.
We're going to make a rebuttal as well.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. And thanking Barrister Julia Areahu, the Secretary, International Federation of Women Lawyers, Kaduna chapter. Thank you for joining us on this discussion and for the highlights and the education. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Not forgetting Miss Ihioma Obibi in Lagos, who joined us earlier on this discussion and raised fundamental issues. Thank you, Miss Ihioma Obibi. And on this note, we call it a day on the program House of Justice, being aired from the HOJ Radio TV from Kaduna here, and where we give light to life and we take justice to law. I hope to connect with you sometime next week. And until then, my name is Gloria Ballason, urging you to insist on the force of law and not the law of force. Bye for now.
It's the House of Justice. Get it, get it, get it, get it.